Alright gang, welcome to the first honors hybrid pre-calc lesson, so let's get this show on the road. Alright, so today's lesson will be in section 1.1, functions. This educational experience is brought to you by your forerunner of functions, Mr. Faust. So, we'll be dealing with functions today. It's very basic, so let's get the show on the road. First and foremost, we have to do some terminology here. A function f. Now we call f the function maps each element in the domain to exactly one element of the range. What are domain and range? Domain, all your possible x values. They're also called input values. So the things you put into a function, your x values. And your range, all your possible y values, all your also called output values. Now, when we get in class, we'll be dealing with examples of looking at equations and finding domain and range. Now, just for posterity's sake, they say the function f here. But you have been dealing with functions that are like y equals. Well, now we can have f of x equals. As you get further along in math, the notation gets a little bit fancier. So it's something we have to be aware of. Now, next on the docket here, we have some tools for us to tell us something's a function or not. How do we tell if we have a function or not? We've got two tools at our disposal, and two ways you've probably heard about before. One being a vertical line test, which is a test that deals with vertical lines, and the second is a mapping diagram. So it's something you've dealt with before that we're going to use today and currently. So, with these two tests, we are able, in fact, to figure out what the heck is going on. So let's take a look at it. The first test we're going to deal with today is the vertical line test. So, step number one for the vertical line test. You're going to draw vertical lines. Shocking, I know. So you draw vertical lines all over your picture if you are given a picture. Now, if our line hits one or more points on a graph, one or none, so we hit 1 point or no points on my graph, we have a function and we're good to go. If our vertical line hits 2 or more points at any point that we hit 2 times, not a function. So are the following pictures functions? Let's take a look here. So, I'm going to draw some vertical lines here. This one, every time I draw vertical lines all over the place, I hit 1 point everywhere. So yes, it's a function. Why? If our line hits 1 or no points. That's what that line did. Same here. Number 2. Yes, that's also a function. For the same rule, if our line hits 1 or no points, it's a function. Now this one, that hits 0, so we're good. 0, 0. But we draw a line right there. Once, twice, if our line hits 2 or more, well, I hit 2. The second you hit 2, boom goes the dynamite. We don't have a function anymore. So no, not a function. Now, number 4 over here is a little hard to see, but this one would pass. Now, I know what you're thinking. But wait a minute. Isn't it right down here really close? Yes, it is. But it's not quite vertical. If you had the points for these, it wouldn't be exactly vertical. Now, to be fair, on a test or a quiz or any assessment like that, they're not going to give you one that could be ambiguous. It's going to be like number 3 or something you can tell if it is or is not a function. Now, next thing we've got going for us is what we call a mapping diagram. Now, mapping diagram. Here are the steps. First off, we have x's and y's, or inputs and outputs. You can label them either way. You'll see both. Step 1, place your input values on the left. Don't repeat them. So you place all your x's on the left column. Now, if you have more than one, you don't repeat it. You place all your output values on the right. You don't repeat them. So if you have multiple times you see a 1, you don't repeat that. Now, you draw a line from your input to your matching output value. What that means is if you have the point 2, 4, 2 goes in your input, 4 goes in your output, and you connect the dots there. And just like the vertical line test, if there is only one line from every input value, we've got a function. So if you only have something over here once, one line going from input to output, you have a function. If there is more than one line from an input function, not. So that means if you think that you have more than one line from an input value, so for instance, if you had like a 2 here, and it went to these 2 points, not a function. Why not? An input cannot go to 2 output values, because if I were to graph this, 2, 2, and 2, 3, look right there. This would fail my good old-fashioned vertical line test. That's why. Both are synonymous. So, now, what we're going to be expected to do is they give you a mapping diagram, like this. And we expect you to be able to plot these points. So my input values here, they are 1, 3, 4, and 2. You mark them all in our chart. Now, you do not have to put them in order. You can put them in whatever order you want. My output values are my y's. They're 2, 2, 5, 4. So 2, do I write the other 2 again? No, I don't repeat them. 5, 4. Now I play connect the dots. 1 went to 2. 3 also went to 2. 4 went to 5, and that 2 went to 4. Now, is this a function or not? So the question I have is, does each input value over here only go to an output value? So 1, you've got one partner. 3's got one partner. 4's got a partner. 2's got a partner. So yes, it is in fact a function. Now I know what you might be thinking. Mr. Fast, wait a second. The output 2 has 2 things going to it. Yeah, totally okay with that. It's the inputs that I'm worried about. Watch if I graph these. Graph the point 1, 2. Graph the point 3, 2. That will pass my vertical line test just fine. Oh, happy days are here again. What will that not pass? The horizontal line test, but we will get to that later. So, these are just the very bare basics of the problems. Now, what we're going to be doing in class together is we're going to be looking at functions and going back to find out what the domain is. So, like for here, the domain of this function, all my possible x values, is just a set. It's 1, 2, 3, and 4. My range is just 2, 4, and 5. All my possible x, all my possible y values. Now, what we're going to be doing in the future is looking at equations and figure out how in the world to find domain and range out of them. But for our basic purposes right now, this is something we've got to cover. So you've got to know what domain and range are, because we don't want to keep going back to that. Domain are your x's, range are your y's. So if you want to mark that down, domain is your x's, range are your y's. And we're going to go from there. We're going to talk about what makes things functions or not. Thus ends this. Now you can open up your homework assignment and take a look at what I expect you to be doing for this section.